Now, though, my colleagues Aldrin Sampear and Kganki Mbanjwa have been engaging the opinions of economists and political parties ahead of this afternoon's speech. And Aldrin, I'll kick it off with you. We've been hearing a range of different views, but what I'm not hearing enough of, and which I think we should be hearing between you and Kganki as well, Kganki, you may agree with this, is more urgency around things like our debt to GDP ratio. It's in the upper 75%. For a developing economy like ours, it should be at around 60%. You hear the trade union say, keep it more working class specific. By all means, do not raise VAT. So a range of different opinions. And of course, from where you are, we're hoping to make more and more sense as we lead into 2 o'clock.
Well, certainly. And this has been an issue that has been raised, Iman. A very good morning to you, about the debt to GDP ratio. If you look at it, we were told that it is going to stabilize at that round about a 75% to GDP. That is what we have been told. But as it stands currently, also considering that agreement that government has gone into with the public servants of that above inflation agreement, a multi-year agreement, 5.5% for this financial year, and then after that it will be linked to inflation over the next 2 years. This is after this financial year. Some economists are saying, how are you going to plug the hole? Do you plug the hole using taxes, or do you plug the hole going back to the market and borrowing money? And of course, as we mentioned now, our debt to GDP ratio keeps on increasing, and on top of that is also the cost of that debt. But let me quickly bring in Kganki Matabane from the Black Business Council to have this conversation with us. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. Speak to us quickly about this issue around debt to GDP and what the debt to GDP does when it comes for business on the ground and the ability of the state to actually spend money on infrastructure.
Good morning, Aldrin, and good morning to the viewers. Maybe just to simplify it, when you earn 10 rands in real life, and
when I ask you to just quickly lift your mic there.
Oh, okay.
I know that I'm asking you to be like a reporter today, but I'm being employed without being paid. Listen, we've got a job for you maybe here at Newzroom Afrika. So you're simplifying the money that the government spends on servicing its debt using the 1 rand.
Yes. So if you earn 1 rand and your expenses are 2 rands, you either, if you want to improve, you either reduce the expenses to 1 rand or 90 cents, or you increase the income, and you don't necessarily do as we do and go and borrow money from somewhere and think you can run your own life with borrowings. So ideally what the country needs to do is to increase the economy and make sure that the economy works, make sure that the economy generates enough money through taxes, not increasing taxes, but through taxes from new business. Hence we've always been saying you need to ensure that you support small businesses, because the small businesses will then grow the economy, hire more people or employ more people, and then those people then pay taxes, and then that then will increase the fiscus. But what we've been doing, mainly because there's no economic growth, is to say let's go and borrow. And what is happening, for example, with the US, is a good lesson that we need to build a resilient economy that is self-sufficient, that is not dependent mainly on in the US, because once you depend on another country, if your policies and your posture does not support what they want to do, they'll just close the tap, and then hence now we've got this little crisis with the health funding. But what we're calling for ourselves is that we need to fund black businesses, and then coming from what the president has mentioned about the 100 billion economic transformation fund over 5 years, government needs to then say, let's put a seed capital. We're suggesting a seed capital of 10 billion to kickstart that funding, so that when the enterprise development funds come in, they need to find money coming from government to say, how then do we start funding small business? How do we start funding black businesses, so that we can then increase the 1 rand, that is the revenue and income, rather than focusing on saying every time we must borrow, because that is not sustainable on its own, because you can see how much we're paying in interest alone.
Yeah, and we've seen the Minister of Trade and Industry coming out to defend that decision around the 100 billion rand transformation fund. There has been opposition to it, and the argument even from members of the Government of National Unity is that that fund itself then becomes race-based again, and their argument is that we should be moving away from race-based policies. That speaks of transformation, but that transformation singling out black owners in this particular case, or black business in this particular case.
Yeah, we always address that question to say economic transformation will only end when the management, ownership and control of the economy reflects the demographics. At the moment, black people are 92% of the population. They own less than 5% of the economy. The CEOs of the JSE listed companies are 70% white males. That on its own tells you that we are very, very, very far from saying let's do away with the economic transformation. So that those people need to at least be comfortable with the fact that economic transformation will be with us for the next 50, 100 years, as long as they are not moving fast enough themselves in implementing it.
Let me quickly ask you this before I go to our business editor, Kganki Mbanjwa. Are there lessons, do you think, that should have been learned from what happened during COVID-19, the trench money that was made available by the state through the various financial institutions, but we saw that there was a low uptake from small business, especially black-owned business, to that money that was being made available because of the criteria that was put in place?
Yeah, hence even with the 100 billion economic transformation fund, we are saying the criteria needs to be in such a way that is very tolerant to people who don't have the history of for example, people who don't have what you call skin in the game. Mm-hmm. So part of the 100 billion fund must then pay or help entrepreneurs to be able to pay their 10% skill in the game, so that people can then not depend on their history, because otherwise then people who don't have necessarily have rich cousins or rich uncles will never be in business. Because if they say you want to buy this building, it's 100 million, you need 10%, where are you going to get it from? So part of the fund must carry that as part of the grants.
Okay. Kganki Matabane, thank you so much for your time. That is the CEO of the Black Business Council. There has been an ongoing debate, of course, around that 100 billion rand transformation fund. The president also mentioned it during his State of the Nation address. But I wonder what it means, though, when it comes to the criteria that is being used, the point that is being just stressed now. I'm also, Kganki, taking into consideration during the height of COVID-19, there was that money that was made available by the state, or at least through financial institutions, and the state guaranteeing that the money will be paid back. But there was a low uptake, especially from black-owned businesses, because they simply couldn't meet that criteria, Kganki.